radio.com. State Representative Jim Struzzi in the studio with us this morning. Our visit presented by Marcus & Mack, voted best law firm and best personal injury lawyer 4 years in a row in the Best of Indiana County contest. You can visit them online at marcusandmack.com. Good morning to you. Would you rather be here in Indiana or there in Harrisburg right now?
Well, good morning, Todd. While I love being here in Indiana, I would love to be in Harrisburg as well, getting a state budget done. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, that's sort of like waiting for Godot here. We're waiting for the budget to finally come and be put forward. Meanwhile, school districts, there was Penn's Manor last night making a move. Some other school districts, other government agencies, they're just about out of money, and they need the help from Harrisburg that I know that you'd love to give them.
Well, absolutely. We're well into this now. We should have had the state budget finished by June 30th, and that didn't occur. I really think that the governor, when he proposed a $51.5 billion spending number, set the bar way too high for the funding that we had coming in, that we knew what our revenues were going to be, much lower than that. And so here we are months later without a state budget in place, because really the numbers that are still out there are still higher than what we expect revenues to be, to the tune of several $billions.
Mm-hmm. Are we close to turning a corner in these budget negotiations?
Well, I think we absolutely are. We've had some really productive meetings over the past week while we were in Harrisburg last week for session. I've met with my counterparts. I know that Senator Pittman, our House Republican leader, Jesse Topper, we've been working diligently to try and keep the conversation going, to sit down in the room, as people have been asking us to do, to try and hash this out, because we do understand the importance of getting it done. We understand the impacts that it does have on our local governments, on our local communities, on our school districts, on our nonprofits. We understand how important it is to have a budget in place. And here we are, as I said, months later. But again, we have to make sure that we are doing the right thing for this Commonwealth, because if we spend more than we have and we don't have a way to backfill that, sooner or later it's going to have an impact on our longevity as a Commonwealth. And we can see that happen in the next year or two if we continue to spend more than we have. So part of it is, how do we generate the revenues that we need with the right policy in place, which is part of the discussions. How do we get the spending number to be more realistic, in line with the expected revenues right now? And then how do we really find I think a collaborative agreement to move that forward, in which we can get enough votes in the General Assembly to pass and have the governor sign. It's not an easy task. It really isn't. When you have 203 people in the House, 50 people in the Senate, and the administration all have to agree on what this is going to look like and have the votes to get it across the finish line.
When we talk revenue in Pennsylvania, there are several different approaches you can take. There's what are we doing now, and can we enhance that?
Right.
And there's, can we add to that with some other source of revenue? And
Right.
skill games is the one that has cropped up the most in some of the discussions that we've heard. That formula and arriving at a formula
Right.
that's acceptable to both sides seems to be a real problem.
It absolutely is a sticking point. I think everyone knows that you need to regulate and tax skill games, if you will, because right now they're simply not regulated. They're everywhere, and we understand the importance of skill games, and we want to make sure that industry can continue to survive. But I think the sticking point really is, where do you land on that number? What's fair? What's reasonable? And how, again, can you get people to agree to that? And that's where the sticking points have been all along with skill games. We're not only looking at that, though. The Reggie thing is still out there. I think that's a big thing, the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, as part of these budget discussions, because we think that knowing the investment that hasn't occurred here in Pennsylvania over the past 5 or 6 years because of the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, we believe that if we take that off the table, that the energy industry will come back in full force, bringing all those jobs back. We see what's happening in Homer City, and we believe we can replicate that across this Commonwealth if we get rid of that sort of policy that looms over these business sectors that want to come back to Pennsylvania, but they don't want to come back if we're continuing to say, well, you can come in here, but we're going to tax you. More so than is reasonable and fair, and that's what Reggie does. It simply taxes carbon emissions. That's going to have an impact on manufacturing, on energy production, on many industries, and that has deterred that investment in Pennsylvania. So that is one way. If we can take that off the table, we believe we can generate more revenues.
Well, the interesting aspect of that to me is those projects are happening in Pennsylvania. Is it despite the fact that Reggie is still on the table, or is it because of great optimism that Reggie will be taken off?
Well, I think part of the thing that you have to look at is Homer City is one of the unique entities in that they're actually going to be building a power plant that puts energy into the grid. Most of these other proposed data centers are simply going to build the power they need to operate those data centers. So we're kind of unique here in Indiana County because we already have the infrastructure in place. We already have access to the grid. So that makes us very special in that way. And I think it's happening despite this policy, despite some of these permitting issues that we've seen over the past many, many years. So we want to clean that up. We'd like to expedite the permitting process. That is part of the discussions as well. I think we need to show people in this budget through the policy that's included with whatever the final spending number is, that Pennsylvania is open for business. We want to see people come back to Pennsylvania, invest, grow our tax base. The more we grow our tax base, the less burden it places on working families. So we really think that key policy needs to be included as part of this budget discussion, and it has been. I mean, those are the playing cards that we have. Our House Republican Caucus has said from the beginning, since I became the appropriations chairman, that our three pillars are, unleashing our energy industry, regulatory reform, and student-centered education, and those are part of the main discussions that we're having in this budget. So we really think that in order to move Pennsylvania forward, we need those key policy pieces in place.
Let's roll it over to the spending portion of the budget, because I think a lot of people after the last budget cycle, they understood finally that there are two different things that you're talking about when you're talking about a state budget. There's actually arriving at a number and priorities for where the money is going to go.
Right.
But then there's also the enabling legislation to make it happen.
Right.
And so the spending portion of it is a key thing, and obviously there are differences there too.
Well, and there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes, and that work is occurring right now. I have a big staff in Harrisburg. We have a lot of people who work to put the nuts and bolts together, if you will, because you have the general appropriations bill, which is essentially the numbers. This is what you're going to spend. And then the code bills, the fiscal code, the education code, all those things define how that money is actually spent. It's the nitty-gritty, the nuts and bolts, but those are the big, thick bills that have to be worked on. So there's a lot of work that has to occur once you do arrive at a final spending number. And that all has to balance out by law.
Yeah. All right. So the education picture is one that has a lot of people flummoxed.
Right.
There's not a whole lot that they can do except wait expectantly for the funds to come in, and that puts them in a deep bind. And you understand that.
Well, we certainly do. And again, we're trying to do everything that we can to be supportive. I know that the treasurer has put out some opportunity for people to get loans. We've pushed some legislation, hopefully, that will alleviate the interest on those loans. I myself put out a co-sponsor memo to do that within the House, and there's a companion bill in the Senate to alleviate the interest on those loans. So there are opportunities for loans and things like that right now. We'd rather not have to see that occur. We'd rather have a budget in place. But again, we have to make sure we're doing the right thing for the long term, because these school districts, they do need their funding, but we have to make sure that it's in a responsible manner.
There was a proposal, of course, to just get the previous budget enacted and then work on fixing the gap then with a new budget that would go on top of that or replace it. That's not on the table anymore?
All these pieces continue to be in play, Todd, until we have a final product. There are a number of bills that we have pushed. As you said, there was the numbers from last year that the Senate sent over to the House. We've moved that back over, although the House Democrats did amend that. And so there are a number of bills that have been introduced that sort of go back and forth as vehicles, if you will. So once you have a final general appropriations number in mind, you can include it in one of those bills that have already moved partially through the process to sort of expedite things once that occurs.
We've been going about 7 or 8 minutes here, and I already have a headache. So I imagine you've been going for months at it, so I imagine your headache is much bigger than mine. So let's talk about other things that are going on.
All right.
Because, there's not all that much time left in the legislative year.
Right.
So once this is all arrived at, probably you and a number of your colleagues have a number of things you'd like to see enacted. Is there time to do some of the things that you want to see that you consider to be priorities?
Well, there certainly is. While there may not be a lot of session days left in this calendar year, we still have another year of session. So the bills that were introduced, moved through committee, what have you, at the beginning of this year and continue to be introduced and move through committee, they are still active through all of next year until December of next year when the session ends. So there's plenty of time to move legislation. It would be nice to get the budget finished, finalized, and move forward, not only for our benefit to move other pieces of legislation, but for the people of Pennsylvania. Obviously, we understand, what's happening with working families, with our communities right now. We want to make sure that government is being responsive. But you're right. I have probably 20 to 25 different pieces of legislation I would love to see moved that haven't, and we have time to do that. But right now the focus is and should be on the state budget.
Yeah, we'd like to get it done before the next budget address.
Right.
Anyway,
Yes.
which comes early enough in the year.
If February 3rd, so not too distant in the future.
Oh, my stomach just turned. All right, so while all of that is happening and you're making trips back and forth between here and Harrisburg, you are around the district quite often.
Absolutely.
We mentioned earlier the Veterans Expo and Stand Down. You'll be there tomorrow. What are some of the other things you have planned here within the district?
Well, we just wrapped up having open houses in each of our district offices, Salzburg, Blairsville, here in Indiana. We had our senior expo last week at the S&T Arena with Senator Pittman and Representative Smith. Probably one of the largest turnouts we've had in many years. I'm going to say probably at least 600 people. So it was a great event to be out there. As I mentioned earlier, we're going to be participating in the Veterans Stand Down event and expo here coming up Friday and Saturday. So I'll have a table set up. My staff will be there to provide materials to veterans on what they can obtain through state services, benefits, and things like that. And of course, the holiday season is coming up. So we're really excited about that. We're looking forward to the It's a Wonderful Life Festival and Parade. I'll be helping to light the tree again this year and truly be present. But I remind people, if you need anything related to state government, any type of services, our offices are open here in Indiana 5 days a week, Tuesdays and Wednesdays in Blairsville, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday in Salzburg, and we're staffing an office on Thursdays at the Homer City Borough Building. So we're out there in the community. You can find us on repstruzzi.com. I'd encourage people to subscribe to our email because we do include information on what's happening in Harrisburg, plus information about what's happening here. Absolutely, right?
We appreciate that.
And just a happy Veterans Day to all the veterans out there. Thank you for your service.
You betcha. You betcha. It is the voice of Indiana County, WCCS, 101.1 FM, AM 1160, and WCCSradio.com.